Thank you all for coming. The rain is not helping at all, I know, but we appreciate your coming. I'm Agor, the president of ARPA Institute. ARPA Institute, I don't know if everybody knows, but it's an organization established in 1992 and works mainly in Armenia. We have several different programs in Armenia. We have an invention competition for university students every year. This is going to be the 6th year. Last year, in other words, 2012, we received 20 inventions, and we awarded 5 awards. They are monetary awards. The first place award is $2,000, and then $1,600 and $400. And we have our distance learning program, whose chief is Yerevan. He works hard to achieve it, and we've been finding experts all over the U.S. who present seminars online on the computer, and we connect to Armenia, and in Armenia students and professors follow interactively. The main idea being technology transfer. So we try to provide the latest information on different subjects. We also have a DNA project, which actually, I don't know if you receive our emails, you should probably know about it already. We are doing fundraising. We need $25,000 to buy a sequencer, which will be placed in the Yerevan State University, so that the Yerevan State University has the capability to study genetics, advanced genetics. We also have an e-archaeology program, which involves archiving all antiquities, antique articles, and monuments in Armenia, which is a huge project, but it is moving slowly. Thus far, we have been able to convince the Ministry of Culture that it is an important program, and actually they should fund it. And so I think we're gonna be successful in that. And obviously, we do our monthly lectures. We have lectures every month on different subjects related to Armenia or Armenians in general. And tonight, we are fortunate to have Mr. Galichian, who is an expert in cartography, study of maps and science of maps. He's by profession an engineer, and that is why I assume he does everything with precision and careful studies and leaves no detail in terms of knowledge and science involved in the process. He's the author of numerous books on the subject and also on other subjects related to cultural, historical information, especially related to those that the Azerbaijanis and the Turks are claiming to be theirs, and he's essentially responding to that and proving that no, it's ours, it's Armenian cultural heritage. He's also the vice chair of the Research for Armenian Architecture, which is an organization that does a great deal of work in Armenia by essentially restructuring old monuments, churches, and providing information about various Armenian architectural heritage articles on the internet and also in scientific journals and scientific conferences. So without further ado, I invite Mr. Galichian to present his talk.
Thank you, Ago. I want first of all to thank ARPA President Ago and also his fellow trustees for arranging this I don't want to say it as lecture, it's a talk about maps related to Armenia. I want to share my knowledge of maps of Armenia. I'd like to share my knowledge about the maps of Armenia, not lecture you on something. Therefore, I would start from the very beginning of, when we say a map, we presume something like this, a world map. This is a 16th century world map. Alaska is not complete yet. Or this map in Armenian language, dating from 1899, drawn in Van. This is the world map, more complete. Or something like this, map of Armenia and Karabakh. This is what presumed maps look like. However, it wasn't like this all the time. This is a world map of 7th century. This shows the whole world surrounded by ocean, with Eden in the east, which is top of the map, and the Mediterranean Sea at the center being Jerusalem. This is a world map of that time. It's a Christian religious map, but this is how the maps were. And this is a very sophisticated map. The others were not as sophisticated, they were simpler. Now let's jump back to our territory which we have today. Here you see Armenia, surrounded by Azerbaijan, Iran, Turkey, Georgia, etc. From all these countries that surround us today, there was only one that has history as long as we have. That is Iran, Persia. Those other countries have much shorter histories. Georgia, as unification of Abkhazia, Iberia, Emeretia, etc., appeared on maps during the 13th, 14th centuries. Turkey appeared as an Ottoman Empire, or before that, on the 14th century. But the Republic of Azerbaijan appeared in 1918 only, north of the Arab River. These are our neighbors. It wasn't like this. Here is a map dating from 16th century, showing the world during the early Middle Ages. You see here Armenia Major, Metzai. You see Armenia Minor, Lesser Armenia, Pokerhide. You see Media, which was part of Persian Empire. And then you see Pontus, Kingdom of Pontus, Cappadocia, Mesopotamia, Assyria, etc. Colchis, Iberia. None of them exist now. All these countries to the west disappeared, were swallowed up by Turkey. And from all these countries, only Armenia and Iran, Persia, exist today. Now let's go back further. 2,600 years ago, this clay tablet, which is a world map, was prepared in Babylon, Assyria. This is the center of the world, surrounded by oceans. Here is translation of the map done in 1934 by British archaeologists, translating the cuneiform text. And in the center of the world, there are 3 countries: Babylon, Assyria, and Armenia. This map states 600 BC. It's kept in the British Museum. And it's about 4 inches wide only. It's a small clay tablet. They used to keep their records on clay tablets, which most of them, being clay, have broken down into pieces and disappeared, but this is the one that has survived. This is the oldest known world map today. There's nothing older than this, depicting the world. See, Armenia is there 600 years before Christ. The old Greco-Roman civilization, particularly the Greeks, have written a lot about history and art, geography. Herodotus wrote about the history, and these later on various cartographers in the world, going through their writings, reproduced what they were trying to show as a map of the world. This is based on Herodotus' histories. Caspian Sea, which is wrong shape, they thought it was this shape until 1700s, 18th century. Only in 1730s the correct shape was known. The Black Sea, which is not too far from reality, and the Mediterranean. Here is Armenia, right bang in the middle of the world. And Caucasus Mountains, there is Media, again, Persia, Media, but there are other countries. Small countries in here, Cappadocia, Phrygia, etc., which disappeared, as I said. So in Herodotus' work, Armenia appears prominently. So does in Strabo's work. In his geography, there are about 60 pages about Armenia, written about the beginning of the Christian era, before that. This is a map of Eratosthenes, prepared in Greece, the world. This is Asia, that's Europe, that's Africa, which was called Libya then. Then again, in the middle, Armenia, in Asia Minor, Media, no other countries. They existed probably, but they were not important for Eratosthenes to mention them in his books. So these are the most important countries that he noted, 200 BC. This map is made by Claudius Ptolemaeus, in Armenian Ptolemaeus. He was the founder of today's modern geography. He lived here between the 60 and 150 AD in Alexandria, which was part of Greece then. And his most important book is called Geographia. He writes about geography, about measuring distances, and measuring how to make maps, how to measure angles, distances, etc., which was used from his time until the 18th century. Some of the items in these books are still used, some of the suggestions. Now, he wrote, his book contains about 8 volumes. And there were, don't forget, handwritten sort of large lettering, etc. Today, they are condensed into 1 volume when they translate it. In his book, he describes the world in 27 different parts, which are maps. He describes each map and then starts a list of cities and rivers and mountains of each country. There are altogether 8,000 place names in his Geographia. Out of the 8,000 place names, 174 relate to Armenia. Lesser Armenia and Greater Armenia, both Armenians, he shows in his maps as well as in books. This is the world map, the whole world. Yellow is Asia, pink is Europe, white is Africa, which was also called Libya, as I said. And it's interesting to note that in most Christian maps, Red Sea is painted red. Now, this part I'm going to show enlarged. The Black Sea, Caspian Sea, Persian Gulf, Mediterranean with Cyprus, Armenia Major, Armenia Minor, two Armenians. There's Albania here and Colchis. Albania is what today is Azerbaijan, Republic of Azerbaijan. Let's not mix it with the country of Albania in near Greece, in Europe. This has nothing to do with it. In old days, this part of the world was known as Albania. In Armenian, Albank. In Persian, in Arabic, Aran. You see, Armenia appears as one of the important countries in the region, according to Ptolemaios. I'm going to show you a couple of other maps that Ptolemy suggested made. Here's a map of Armenia, Armenia Minor, Armenia Major, Caspian Sea. The seas are painted green here, not blue as normal. Mediterranean. The blues are the mountain ranges, and these are all the cities, the 174 that I mentioned that Armenia includes in the works of Ptolemy. It is interesting to note that our neighbors, today's neighbors, the Republic of Azerbaijan, says no Armenians lived in this part of the world until 1829, when the Russian armies brought them from Persia to live in this area. Here's the complete opposite proof what the 2nd century historian and geographer has shown us. Now I'm going to show you this diagram because from now on, from the Middle Ages, the maps, world maps, were known mostly as TO maps. Why? This is the letter T, this is the letter O. If they put one into the other, becomes this. This is how the world was shown in Christian medieval maps. East was at the top. When we open a map today, we take it granted that north is at the top, but it wasn't always so. It was decided in 1874 to that. Before that, you could do anything. Bottom, north, get better. Bottom, left, right, or top, whatever. There was no convention. But in the Middle Ages, they decided to have east at the top, because that's where the sun goes from, and where the Eden, earthly paradise, was located. Half of the world was occupied by Asia. Europe was the quarter, the other quarters were Africa. This T, the division of these continents, was denoted by the 3 waterways: Mediterranean Sea, the river Nile in Egypt, and the river Don in Russia. These were showing the basic divisions of the world. So TO map is always in this shape. They started with very simple ones, and then gradually, I will show you a few samples, they graduated into more elaborate and very decorative ones. This is a TO map. You can see the blue, the ocean. You can see the Mediterranean. You can see the river Don and the Nile. And it says Europa here. There are various large cities of Europe. Africa, there are no countries mentioned because they didn't know what existed there. But Asia has more countries. And in Asia, you have Armenia, Noah's Ark, in the middle of Noah's Ark. So Noah's Ark was depicted in Armenia in the TO maps, which were, as I said, more based on religious doctrine than reality. Here's another TO map dating from the 12th century. The previous one was from the 11th century. This is 12th century French map. It's very interesting to note here that there are 2 Armenias here. One is the Cilician Armenia, and the other one is the Caucasian Armenia in south of Greco-Roman. So this map was made during the Crusader years. They already in France knew that there were 2 Armenians, one by the Mediterranean, the other further east. This again, as I said, the Teo map with Jerusalem in the middle, and the river Don, which is in Latin is called Tanais, river Tanais, and the river Nilus, the Nile. And Mediterranean was called Maggiore, large sea. This is a more elaborate Teo map. You can still see the features of the T and O, the ocean surrounding the world, the letter T. This is the Mediterranean with the numerous islands. Here is the river Don, and then the Nile. The Red Sea is depicted red. According to the Old Testament, the sea parted to let the Jews from Egypt to Palestine. Even that is shown in this map. Now here, you see little two blobs. Underneath is written Mount Ararat, and then Noah's Ark sitting on top of it. On these maps, generally Noah's Ark and Ararat is mentioned, and here it mentions Armenia. Here's the Caucasian mountains, with a gate in the middle, which is the Darial Pass, which was the only way connecting north and south of Caucasus until the 20th century. Various important religious centers and trade centers in Europe and in Asia and Africa are shown here. Africa is shown full of unusual animals, mythological animals, etc. This map is dating from the 12th century and is kept in Germany, in Munich. These maps that I've shown you so far, there is only one example of the exact type of map. There are copies, but each copy is completely different from the other. So these are unique ones. There's manuscript maps, each one means unique one. The first map that I showed you, 6th century, this is a section that relates to Armenia, east at the top, with the four rivers of paradise flowing out of it. Assyria, Parthia, Armenia. It's quite one of the largest countries shown in the area. This is the part of the Mediterranean, and these are the 12 apostles, each one having traveled to that part of the world to preach Christianity. This map is kept in Burgo de Osma Cathedral in Spain. Here we go to the Islamic cartography. Islamic cartography during the Middle Ages was more advanced than Christian one, because the Islamic leaders, not the mullahs, the actual leaders of the country, were promoting art and sciences and giving free access to whoever wanted to study and be involved in scientific research. And this is the result. This is a map by a Persian cartographer, geographer called Ghazvini. He was from the city of Ghazvin. Let me see if we can focus it better. In Islamic cartography, generally, south was at the top. Readers of Persian can see Junub, Shumal, north and south. So the map is completely reversed. To the right is the Mediterranean. To the left is the Indian Ocean with various islands, important islands there. This part is Asia. That is Africa, and here is Europe. This is the Aegean Sea and the Black Sea, and the Caspian Sea being here. Now in here, we can note Azerbaijan, which is the Iranian province of Azerbaijan. It is in Iran. And then we see Armenia. This is 9th century Islamic map. drawn by Razmini, and it's kept in the British Library in London. Now, belongs to the Balkhi School of Islamic Mapping. The Balkhi School, whoever was following this school, which was prevalent, almost 90% of the maps made during that time was according to this school. There was one world map, similar to this, each one completely different from each other, of course, in design, in the way they mentioned the countries, they showed the countries. And then there were normally 18 to 20 maps of regions. But all those regions related to Islamic world, to the Islamic world. One of them, Mas'udi, in writing in the 1124, writes that we are not bothered with non-Islamic countries. We want to show the Islamic world to you. Therefore, there's no point wasting time talking about the others. In the world map, they mention different countries like Russia, Bulgaria, Spain, Germany, France, etc. But details map do not show the non-Islamic world. Except in one map. In this school of mapping, there is one map called the map of Armenian, Azerbaijan, Iran. In other words, Armenia, Azerbaijan, meaning the Persian province of Azerbaijan, which still exists today, and Albania, which is the Azerbaijani Republic called Azerbaijan today. And these three maps, this map is the only one that includes non-Islamic countries in it, because both Iran and Armenia were Christian countries at the time. This is a typical map of Istanbul, made according to the Balkhi school principles. This is kept in Topkapi Museum in Istanbul. This is the Caspian Sea, Caucasus Mountains, the river Arax and river Kura, shown somewhat connected together. South of Arax, there is Azerbaijan, which is Iranian province of Azerbaijan, not to be mixed with the Republic of Azerbaijan. And then in Armenia, these two blobs mentioned the Mount Ararat, large and small Ararats. Here is Devin, capital of Armenia, and these are shown as the Armenian cities, starting from Salmas, going to Bitlis. These are cities in Azerbaijan, and a number of cities in Albania, Iran, which include Bardaha, which is the Armenian part of, city of Baku, Bayrakan, etc., today in the Republic of Azerbaijan. So this part was called Albania. Here is an important geography book by Abul Fida, a famous Arab geographer who traveled the world and prepared tables of various countries of the world. In the first one, for this column, there is the belonging of the country, of the region of the world, because in Islamic cartography they also divided the world into 7 climatic regions, from north to south, from cold to hot. Then here we have the names of the towns. Then here we have the geographical coordinates in Arabic letters, longitude, latitude, etc. The country it belongs to, here, and how the name is read, because in Arabic and as well as in Persian, vowels are not written. Therefore, any unknown name has to be detailed more or less so that the reader could read it correctly. And then, in this part, it gives information about people who lived in these towns, what they did, what their trades were, what sort of people they were. For example, in here, Bostan, Arjish, Khalat, Bitlis, Malazgirt, they all say Men Armenian in Armenia. This is Arabic geography book dating from the 13th century. There is no mention of Iran because that country already had disappeared by the 13th century, the people having converted into Islam, assimilated with the others living in the area. The country didn't exist anymore. There were Khanates there. Here's a handwritten book by Khatib Chelebi, written in 1653, History of the World and Geography of the World. This is Lake Van, sideways. North is on the right here. Various cities around it. And here is description of the, if you read Farsi, they did not underline it in red, they overlined it. In other words, the red line relates to the letters like Awsaf al-Van, description of Van. It talks about the city of Van, again start talking about the hike and bell, the mythology, what happened and how the Armenians are related to this. This was written in 1653, and it was one of the first books that was printed in Istanbul in Turkish, in Arabic letters, in 1743, but 90 years later, including all these. There are two chapters about Armenia. One is the Armenia, which is located in the Ottoman Empire. The other part of Armenia, which is located in Iran, Eastern Armenia. And funny enough, this book was partially transliterated into today's Turkish with Latin characters. And all the name of Armenians have been changed to Aranis, Albanians. The cities of Armenia, for instance, have been named differently. And the two chapters that describe Armenia have altogether been eliminated. Now I'm going to talk to you about some different type of map. These are called Portolan maps. In Italian, Portolano. They were prepared by the sailors who traveled in the Mediterranean. They were not interested in the features of the land inside countries. They were only interested in what happens, what exists on the shores. Therefore, this is part of Shattered from Italy. You see, all these are names of towns and villages and rivers, etc., on the shoreline, on the coast. Nothing inside the countries. It's blank. Inside the countries, it's blank. Just gives the name of the country. These were used by Greek sailors before our era, and then during the 10th to 14th century, these became very prevalent, and they started making these maps and using for navigation. And they started already going out of the Mediterranean to different parts of the world. The Portolanos were used by captains who traveled to the Far East. And each captain was given the custody of the map, Portolano, and he bet his life on it, because if he lost it, he would have been beheaded, because it may have gone to the enemy. Portolans aboard the ship were kept in locked boxes, which contained heavy weights in them, so that if something happens, the enemy boards the ship, it could be thrown overboard and sink immediately, so that the enemy couldn't see what they have discovered. Of course, as always this happens, there were a number of maps that escaped these sort of problematic situations and appeared in the enemy's hand, whoever the competitor's hand, and were used accordingly. These maps were called Portolan maps. There are very few of them today existing because they were drawn on vellum by hand. and being used by the captains and by various people, they wore out and they were sort of disintegrated most of the time, and very few are left. A Portolano map, a good condition, it can cost $500,000, one sheet of paper, map. And this is a typical example, nicely decorated with flags, etc., related to Italy. And there are the compasses on them. The compass already had arrived from China, and the European captains knew what the compass was. Here I will show you another Portolan map. It may not be very clear, but it's the Mediterranean Sea. See, this area is the Mediterranean. This is the Greek islands here. The Black Sea is on the top. The Caspian further right. This is what we have Lebanon and Syria today. The Red Sea, painted red. And the African coast. Now, in the corner of Mediterranean, you see a couple of flags and the green line. Further northeast, you see these two mountains and another couple of mountains. I will show the enlarged figure of those items to you. The green, it says Armenia Minor. And the two maps are the maps related to the kingdom of Cilicia, Galichian, and Roshatner. Now, why do these appear in Italian Portolan maps? Italy had connections with Cilician Armenia. Venice dealt with Cilician Armenia, and they knew that this area was occupied by Christian Armenians. And don't forget, these maps were prepared during the Crusader years, so it was a guide for the captain, for the Crusaders, to know when they crossed the area, when they came from Europe, crossing the area, all were enemy territories. Suddenly they came to in this green enclosed area, which were friendly people. They were also Christians. Well, they abused the hospitality of the Christians, and they decimated Armenia at the time, of course. But this is the situation. It shows Christian Armenians as Cilician Armenia at the northeastern corner of the Mediterranean Sea. Now those two mountains are mentioned to be mountains of Armenia. This is Taurus range of mountains with the river Euphrates and Tigris flowing out, and city of Malatya and one or two other Armenian cities being shown on the way. This Armenia Major is denoted by Arca Noe, Noah's Ark, Seset Armenian Montes, sitting on Armenian mountain. Mount Ararat with two cones, and Noah's Ark sitting on it. Now, it is unusual to have any features of countries which exist inside away from the sea. Armenia was at that time, as is now, a landlocked country. Why would Italians, which have never had access to Armenia, show Armenia in their maps? Write Armenia, no other countries mentioned. One explanation will be that Armenian merchants were dealing in Italy with Italians. They probably used some Portolan map for their travels, and have told the Italians, or whoever they met, that in that part of the world, furthest, the eastern end of the Christian world, there's a country called Armenia, when according to the Bible, the Mount Ararat exists with the Noah's Ark, etc., etc. And Rome, the Italian and also Spanish Portolan makers, they have drawn this country on their maps, which, as I said again, is a landlocked country. This is again showing the importance of role of Armenia in world trade at the time, because otherwise they wouldn't have bothered at all. Now, let's go back to European cartography of Middle Ages, 1600s, etc. This is a map prepared by a Dutch cartographer called De Wit. Here is the Caspian Sea, Black Sea, Iran, and then it says Armenia. This part is shown as Armenia, and this is here as Kurdistan, first time ever. This is Turkey, to the east, to the west. Here is a map drawn in 1630s by French cartographer Guillaume de Ville, which shows the southern Caucasus, Caspian Sea already in proper shape, because Peter the Great hired European cartographers to go and measure topography of the Caspian Sea and prepare a detailed map, which they did in 1730s. And here is the interesting part of the map. This is the Arax River, Kura River. Now, Republic of Azerbaijan claims that all this territory was Azerbaijan from historic time, prehistory. Now, let's see what the French cartographer says. South of the Arax River, Azerbaijan, which is the Persian province of Azerbaijan. Now, the name of Azerbaijan given to the territory has the following history. During the wars of Alexander the Great, this part was called Lesser Media, part of Iran, part of Persian Empire. Alexander's forces approached this area, but there was a local military leader called Atropatene. Atropat resisted, sent forces against, fought with Alexander, and Alexander never was able to conquer that part of the world. In his honor, the country, that part of the land of Persia was named Atropatene, which is the Armenian name today, Azerbaijan. We still call it with the same name. However, in Arabic, Atropatene gradually changed to Azerbaijan, Azerbaijan. It's the same name. Therefore, Iranian province of Azerbaijan has been there for 2,000 years. But always south of the Arax River. Now, the north of the Arax River, under the Russian domination, there was Yerevan and Armenia. Lake Sevan. But where the modern Republic of Azerbaijan is, this green line on the right denote various khanates, where various khans reigned, Islamic khans, started from Shirvan, Dagestan, Shaki, etc., and Talish. Various khanates. This is made by the French cartographer, as I said, Delisle in 1730s. Again, we see large Armenia, although not independent country, but since people lived there, the area was called Armenia. By the way, in the old maps that you saw, I showed you previously, you didn't see any borders. Until this 15th, 16th century, maps did not contain any borders, because borders were changeable. They were easily changed, and the country was enlarged or lost territory. It all depends on the strength of the ruler, how powerful they were, what sort of armies they had. But the name of the people who lived in the area never disappeared. It was always there. Armenia has not had independence for over 7 centuries. Yet in all those maps, that territory, today's Eastern Turkey, Batmakan Mayastan, including the Russian Armenian, Persian Armenian, that part was written as Armenia, because the Armenians lived there. This continued until 1925. In 1925, according to demands of Ataturk, because there were no more Armenians living in the eastern Turkey, he made the cartographers remove the name of Armenia from the maps. And Armenia stayed as the Soviet Armenia only. For 2,600 years it was named Armenia. From 1925 onwards, that name was taken off that part of the Armenia. Here one interesting feature is the Urmia Lake and Lake Van. The cartographer had heard that these two have salty water, brackish water, assumed that they were connected, so they put them together next to each other with a little channel connecting them. Now, this map has a very interesting history. This is a map printed in Constantinople in 1803. It's from an atlas, world atlas, and this map is called the Dowlat al-Elliye, the Supreme Porter, as they call it in English, the Ottoman Empire, the map of the Ottoman Empire in Asia. This is only in Asia. Asya Tarafenda, here written, the side of Asia. Now, in this map, I draw you to your attention to Trabzon, Erzurum, Gurjistan, which is Georgia, Khanate of Yerevan, Mount Ararat, Van, Kurdistan. It is in Ottoman script is written Armenistan, Armenia. This is the Turkish map of 1803, 1804, during those years. And Anatolia, correctly, is given, the name is given to the Asia Minor Peninsula, which is this part. Today, Anatolia, the Turks call their whole country Anatolia, which is incorrect. It's completely false. They have done it in order to remove the name of Armenian highlands from their territory, because that part was called Armenian Plateau, Armenian Highland, Kakan Barsravanda. Now they call the whole thing Anatolia. In 1803, until 1867, they called this area Armenia. And Azerbaijan was again in the southern part of the Arax River. Now, this is a German map made by Kipper, famous German cartographer who for about 50 years lived in this area. He spoke Persian, Turkish, Armenian, German, Russian, and God knows how many other languages. And he's prepared the most detailed maps of the Turkish Empire, including Armenia and the names of towns and villages of that time. This is one of those maps, 1844. I'll show you the section relating to Armenia, this section, Lake Van, etc. enlarged. To the left, you see the German map, Heinrich Kipper, and the name Armenia is related Armenian, from Malatya, etc., to Lake Sevan. It's named Armenia. This map was translated into Turkish in 1854. They kept all the names, including the name Armenia. However, they put name Armenia so small in a mountainous area and call it Arman, incomplete, so that anybody not knowing what this is would not realize this is what says Armenia. So de facto Armenia has disappeared from this map. This is one way of making countries disappear, which became a habit for the Turkish cartographers later on. Now, what I told you about Eastern Anatolia, etc. Name Anatolia in Greek means east. Why? Because the Byzantine Empire had their capital in Constantinople, and to the east there was a territory that they had conquered. It was called the Eastern Territory, Anatolia. However, it was the Asia Minor Peninsula that was named by these names. Even this Turkish map, it says Anatolu, this part, and to the right, which the Turks today call Anatolia, there is no Anatolia. So when most of our historians do not pay attention to this, they call Western Armenia Eastern Anatolia. This is incorrect. Eastern Anatolia is here. Armenia is east of Anatolia, not Eastern Anatolia. I've mentioned this to a number of our distinguished historians, but they haven't realized the importance of this. But please be careful when you talk about Eastern Armenia, Western Armenia, never mention Eastern Anatolia. Correctly, it is east of Anatolia. What I mentioned, the name of Armenia, appearing in maps until 1924. This is an American map. It says Armenia. From there to Lake Sevan. 1925. Armenians had lived in the area, but were ethnically cleansed by the Turks between 1915 and 23. After this date, the name Armenia has removed from American maps. Now I'd like to tell you a few words about maps in Armenian, in the Armenian language. Now, probably you all have heard that Ashkaratsuyts, our famous geographical book, that dates from the 6th, 7th centuries. There's a dispute who has prepared that. Some say Anania Shirakatsi, others say Khoreratsi, but most probably Shirakatsi has prepared it because there are a number of references in his book that refer to 7th century European historical cartographers. Now, this is a page of the handwritten Ashkaratsuyts, the world, mirror of the world, which describes, similar to Ptolemy's book, various countries in the world in passing. When it comes to Armenia and the neighboring countries, there are many, many more place names there and descriptions. There's about 34 copies of this in Matenadaran only, and there's only one full copy of the extended version of Ashkaratsuyts, which is kept in Municipal Library in Venice. Now here it refers to Patromius Claudius, refers to Ptolemy, the map that I mentioned. He said, as a source, I've used Ptolemy's book, Geography. Also, Pappus of Alexandria, which was much later and follower of Ptolemy's school. This is why I say it's probably from the 7th century. Now, English cartographers have prepared the map of Armenia according to Ashkaratsuyts, which extends from the Caspian Sea to round about the southern Taurus Mountains. These are various provinces of Armenia, Albania, which is today's Republic of Azerbaijan, Media, Persia, Media, as I said, Atropatia. It says here Atropatia, Atropagan, and Babylon, etc., other countries. Now, until about 20 years ago, 22 years ago, everybody thought that this map is the oldest Armenian map existing. This was printed in Amsterdam in 1695 by Bishop Vanandesi, who came from Nakhichevan, went to Amsterdam, established a printing house, and one of his first projects was printing of this map in Armenia. Now, it has no Armenian sort of connection, this map. It's just the Dutch map translated into Armenian, and he chose the best of Dutch geographers and scribes to make this map, and there's a eulogy about those two brothers who etched the map, two Dutch brothers who etched the map, in here describing them as Schoonberg brothers. This is a world map with European mythological figures here, the night sky, now northern southern hemispheres, the planetary system, the Earth in the middle, with the others revolving around the Earth, the South Pole and the North Pole. This is the oldest printed map in Armenia. It is not, as I said, of Armenian sort of a collection otherwise. But it's valuable. About 12 copies of it exist all over the world. The Library of Congress has one, Paris, London, Berlin, and a number of, there are one in Matena, one HBLC, two in the National Library of Armenia. This is a huge map, 1.20 meters by about 60 centimeters, but 4 feet by 3 feet. As a central section about Armenia, you see the Caspian is still shown in the wrong way because it was before 1730s. Medzhike, Greater Armenia, Poker Hike, Lesser Armenia. In 1990, the University of Bologna decided to have an exhibition of maps that they have in their collection. When they're looking through their storage, in the basement they found a big roll written Armenia in Latin on it. They opened the roll and nobody could understand what this was. Neither the writing nor the shape, they were very unfamiliar to all of them. Fortunately, in Bologna there was, and there still is, an Armenian chair. At the time, Gabriela Galichian was teaching there, and they immediately, having seen name Armenia, they thought this Armenian might know what this is. They took it, the map to her, and this is about 10 feet long by about 3 feet wide. It is a map of all Armenian monasteries and important churches. From Constantinople to Kandasar and Artsakh. There are about 900 churches and monasteries mentioned in the map, and in the description here, it says Count Marsili from Italy came to Constantinople and ordered Yerevan, who was a well-known scientist and cartographer and historian at the time, to prepare a map of the Armenian churches in the Middle East. So, for 2 years, this man was busy preparing this map, and I'll show you a section of the map. This is a little part of the map. Mount Ararat, with all descriptions, etc. Echmiadzin, with the Catholicos entertaining the Persian Sardar. This is the 3 churches of Echmiadzin, 4 churches of Echmiadzin. And here, Aragat with its 4 peaks, Lake Sevan, with the island, not the promontory as it is today, with the island. And each of these churches and monasteries has a short description. Having worked in Savank in 1990s, renovating the complex, I remember that we used to talk to elders in the village, and they would say that this, before the Soviet times, there were lots of snakes in the spring in the good land that we till, and the church sent the priest over to the fields, and the priest read some sermon over the land, and the snakes went and dropped themselves, jumped into the valley, into the gorge below, so they could use the land. But today the land is not used, it's left untouched, because there's no priest to come to pray, and the snakes are still there, so it's dangerous. Now, I read this cartouche, was Savank. And if you can read, Yepiskoposanis, this is short list. The Savan, Aragazoten, Inishal, Otsahalat. Same region that they told us in the village 10 years ago has been written in here 300 years ago. So when we hear little myths and things from here and there, they must have been there for a very, very long time. This is one of the sample examples that I wanted to show you. Now, this map dates from 1691, so it's 4 years older than the printed Armenian. However, this is not the end of the story. In my researches, I discovered a small TO map in Matenadara. Let's show this. TO map in Matenadara. You see the shape O and the T, Jerusalem in the middle, Red Sea painted red, including its parking, various names, etc., important city names, important trade names. Looking at the names of the cities here, which says Kaffa. Kaffa is today's Russian city of Theodosia. At this time, it belonged to the Italians because the Mongols had conquered the area and had leased the city of Kaffa to the Italians. The city was run by the Italians because it was a trade center between Russian port Mongols and the Italians. So the Italians were in control of the city, and it appears that these maps were made in that city. The cartographer, having seen European TO maps, has tried to create another similar to this. This map dates from the 13th to 14th century. This is de facto the oldest Armenian map ever prepared. It's 11 centimeters in diameter, 4 inches from here to here. And center is Jerusalem with its gates, the names of the gates, etc. And there are cities here, for instance, Damascus, Baghdad, and Mount Sinai, where the Lord gave commandments to Moses. He describes all this. And then it goes to Kaffa and Azov, which is the city of Azov, and then goes on to Khoraz, which is the eastern part of the Caspian Sea, the Persian town. Then goes to Zaitun and Khaikar. Zaitun is a port town in China, which was used during the Silk trade. So this map was drawn during the Silk trade, and the cities are there, one after the other, and important European towns as well are shown on this, which were receiving the goods from the Silk Road. However, this nice Armenian cartographer who's written everything on that has forgotten to put Armenia on it. Probably he's never been to Armenia, he's never seen Armenia. He was born in Kaffa, born and raised there, and he just has drawn whatever he's seen. But it is an Armenian map. It is included in a volume prepared in Kaffa, which has different mathematical parts, etc. And today, if you go to Matenadaran, it is opened and shown in one of the cabinets there. Here is the English translation of each region in the map. I've translated each and every region in the map into Latin so that people could understand what it says. Another map, which is again Armenian map, dating from 1787, printed in Venice, in Mkhitaryan, Yerevan, is this one, which is from the Ottoman Empire, including Hayastan, Armenia, etc. This is a very nice looking map. There are many maps prepared and printed in Venice, and we owe, I think, our cartographic heritage mainly to Venice Brotherhood there. And finally, I'm going to leave you with this map. You heard, so it's of Hayastan, Armenia from sea to sea. Here's Armenia during the reign of Tigran. Meds includes Atropaten, this is Tigranes Regioni Tigran's region. All this white area was Armenia, from Cilicia, Lebanon, to the Caspian Sea. This map was made by a British cartographer in the 1880s. With this map, I would like to leave you, and thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, I'm prepared to answer them.
You mentioned several times how the Azerbaijan, the word Azerbaijan, is a province of Iran, Persia. And then at one point you mentioned that the word Armenia was also a region of what's east of Anatolia. And I was just, when you said that, I was just thinking to myself, wouldn't what you say about Azerbaijan be what the Azeris point their fingers at us and say? Or what's our response to that when the Azeris and Armenia didn't exist either? It was just a name.
Our response to that are the two books that are written. One is entitled The Invention of History, Showcasing the Imagination, Armenia and Azerbaijan, Showcasing the Imagination. Here it describes what Azerbaijan was, what they claim they are. They claim that Armenians are destroying all their heritage. I'm showing that we are keeping their heritage, even in Armenia, and they are the ones who are destroying all our heritage, including from Julfa, the famous Khashgar cemetery of Julfa, which was destroyed about 7 years ago. My latest book is called The Clash of Histories in the South Caucasus. This is all about mapping, history, culture, problems existing between Armenia and Azerbaijan today. This describes why the Azeris are claiming these things, what is the reason that they started doing this. Because if they were told by Stalin to make a country with their own culture, an ancient culture and ancient history. If you don't have anything, you have to borrow someone else's. So this is all about that. This book is about that. All those questions are answered in this book, but basically, yes, Azerbaijanis are claiming that the Azerbaijan, the Iranian territory, was theirs, has always been theirs for 3,000 years. Yet, 3,000 years ago, north of the Arax River, there were other countries. Not Islamic countries, they were Christian countries. Albania was a Christian nation until the 9th century, 8th century, when the Arabs invaded. The Armenians resisted, they didn't resist, they became Muslims. And the Azeris claim that all the monuments built in the area of Artsakh, Armenia, and Azerbaijan, the Republic of Azerbaijan, belong to Albanians, because Albanians have built them. My claim is that in the 9th century, Albanians turned into Muslims. There are about 4,000 Christian Albanians left today. Those churches and monasteries were built between the 10th, 11th, and 18th centuries. Did Islamist Albanians build Christian churches? Did they do that? How come? And there are no mosques, no old mosques there except some Iranian mosques. So the country is completely new. They don't even have their own alphabet. If there is a 5,000-year-old country, how come they never had an alphabet? They've changed it 4 times during this last century. And each change of alphabet had brought rewriting of history and geography books. Everything that you read today is written, edited, according to today's policies, today's politics. If you compare it with the old books which were written in Farsi, in Persian script, they're completely different.
Any other questions? Yes.
You said there are 4,000 Albanians left, Christian Albanians left.
Yes, there are about 4 to 6,000 Christians in Azerbaijan who were the old Albanians. They're called Udis now. The Udi people who are Christians, still Christian, and they are persecuted. They are in Azerbaijan, and their religion is blamed to be taken from Armenians, so they are very careful in practicing their own religion. The things that I said about Azerbaijan, about the culture and history, etc. George Burlutian has written a lot about these things as well, comparing the old books and the new books that exist in Azerbaijan in Persian script and in Latin script today. You can read his notes on this as well. Yes?
Are you planning to have your lecture in a book form at some point, or do you have it?
Well, I have written 2 books on cartography, which the first one came out in 2004, Historic Maps of Armenia. Most of the maps that you see are taken from these books, from this book. And the second one is the countries south of the Caucasus in medieval times. So these are mainly Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Armenia, comparing various maps, Christian TO maps, Islamic maps, and later Latin maps that existed. These 2 are sequel of 2 books, and all this information that I gave you exists in those books as well as part of it, the political part of it in this book. This latest volume came out in last October.
The very first map that you showed, the one that from British Museum, I think,
The clay tablets.
6th century BC. Can we see that again?
Yes, of course you can see that again.
Before you change it, can I ask a question about this map?
Yes.
This was done in 1800, you said?
1880s.
Why would a cartographer in 1800 would draw a map of
normally atlases that were made, large atlases were made, they included part about the ancient world. They started from the whatever time, how far they could go back into history, produced maps for every century or 2 centuries, how the world looked like at those times. And then when they finished that, then they gave the modern world. This is the ancient part of that map, from the ancient part of that atlas.
Ավելի բարձր ռոմեական կայսրություններ ու դե տարածքի հարասանությունում բազմելեր Արմենիան, Ալբանիայի գրածա Ադրբեջան։ Այսինքն դա նշանակում